Imagine walking into your own store undercover and hearing an employee say they can't even afford to eat. What would that reveal about your business? It was a cool, crisp morning in early fall when Ethan Reynolds, the CEO of Reynolds and Company, a once small retail chain turned regional powerhouse, decided he needed to see the real pulse of his business. For years, Ethan had taken pride in his company's success, attributing it to fair wages, a close-knit culture, and an unwavering commitment to his employees. But recently, unsettling whispers had reached his ears, rumors of low morale, mounting turnover, and employees struggling to make ends meet despite full-time hours. "I'll never forget that moment," Ethan later recalled. He had been reading a series of anonymous emails from lower-level staff, all hinting at one undeniable truth: something was terribly wrong on the store floor. The upper management had brushed off these concerns, insisting that the complaints were just the usual noise. But Ethan's gut told him otherwise. So, he hatched a plan that would change everything. He would go undercover in one of his own stores. It wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a calculated risk to see for himself what was really happening behind closed doors. Ethan transformed himself into someone unrecognizable. A few streaks of gray in his hair, a rugged old hoodie, and a pair of well-worn jeans replaced his usual crisp suits and polished shoes. With a plain baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, he set off for one of the outlying stores, nearly 2 hours away from the corporate headquarters, where the daily grind was least likely to be masked by boardroom bravado. The store was modest, with a cozy cafe area that many locals frequented. On the surface, everything looked perfectly normal. But as Ethan entered, he immediately sensed an underlying tension. Employees moved robotically behind the counter, their forced smiles barely concealing a deep weariness. One young woman, whose name tag read Mia, greeted him with a polite yet hollow welcome. Ethan ordered a coffee and a breakfast sandwich, and as Mia punched in his order, he noticed her voice drop into a near whisper as she muttered, "I can't even afford one of these." It was a statement that hit him like a freight train. Here was someone who was supposed to be a valued member of his team, yet she was struggling to put food on the table. Over the next hour, Ethan observed every detail: the careful but hurried movements of the staff, the tension in their eyes, and the way the shift manager, a stern man named Darren, barked orders at everyone with little regard for their well-being. Darren was quick to reprimand any minor mistake. When Mia accidentally handed over the wrong type of milk with a customer's latte, Darren snapped, "That's going to come out of your paycheck." The rebuke was sharp and public, leaving Mia visibly shaken. Unable to contain his concern, Ethan decided to dig deeper. The next day, using a fake resume that boasted extensive retail experience, he applied for a part-time position at the very same store. His plan was to experience the daily grind firsthand and to understand the full extent of the issues that plagued his company. His first day on the job was an eye-opener. The training was cursory at best, there was barely any guidance, and the staff was so understaffed that everyone seemed to be juggling multiple roles. Mia was tasked with more than her fair share of responsibilities, and even as she moved with determined precision, there was an undeniable air of exhaustion about her. Ethan soon learned that the problems went beyond just understaffing. He overheard quiet conversations among his colleagues, whispers about paycheck discrepancies, sudden shift changes that made planning impossible, and an unspoken fear of retaliation if anyone dared to speak up about their hardships. In one hushed moment, a fellow employee confided, "We're always one mistake away from getting docked another $1. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up." It was in that moment, standing behind a crowded counter with orders piling up, that Ethan realized the full extent of the disconnect between his vision and the harsh reality faced by those on the front lines of his business. Armed with undeniable proof and a heavy heart, Ethan decided it was time to confront the issue head-on. After his shift, he shed his disguise and returned to the store in his official attire, a crisp blazer and polished shoes, symbols of authority. The change in his appearance was like a jolt of electricity in the room. Employees paused, exchanging confused glances, while Darren's face twisted with immediate defensiveness. Ethan's voice, usually reserved for boardroom meetings, now rang out clear and steady. I've been here, working among you, and I've seen the truth. I've seen how hard you work and the toll it's taken. Mia, can you tell me, why are you forced to sacrifice even your basic needs? Mia's eyes widened with disbelief. It wasn't every day that a CEO showed up unannounced and, more shockingly, exposed the painful truth. Her voice trembled as she admitted that her paycheck barely covered her rent and groceries. One by one, other employees began to share their stories. The atmosphere, heavy with suppressed frustration and relief, shifted palpably. Darren tried to interject, claiming, "Payroll handles all that. There's nothing wrong here." But Ethan cut him off. "I've reviewed the records myself, and I know there are discrepancies," he said firmly. The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Realizing that he had no choice but to act, Ethan made a decisive move. He announced immediate changes, a thorough review of payroll, wage adjustments that would ensure a living wage, and a complete overhaul of the training and scheduling processes. "No one working here should ever feel like they're just a number," he declared. "You deserve respect, stability, and fairness." He even handed Mia a check to cover her immediate expenses, a symbolic gesture that soon rippled into a broader promise of care and accountability for every employee in the store and, eventually, across the company. In the days that followed, the store began to transform. The employees, once burdened by a system that devalued them, started to find hope in the CEO's genuine concern. The new management policies brought about tangible improvements. More staff were hired, better training was instituted, and shift changes were scheduled with respect to employees' personal lives. Mia's transformation was particularly inspiring. No longer did she have to hide behind forced smiles. Instead, she started to express a quiet confidence. "I never thought a CEO would come down and really listen," she said with a renewed glow in her eyes. "Now, it feels like we're finally being seen for who we are." Ethan wasn't content with fixing just one store. His experience had opened his eyes to a broader systemic issue, and he vowed to personally visit every location under his company's umbrella. His message was clear: change was coming, and it wasn't just about numbers or profits, it was about people. The story didn't end there. In a series of follow-up visits, Ethan worked with local managers and staff to implement long-term strategies aimed at not only boosting morale, but also fostering a culture of transparency and mutual respect. He organized town hall meetings where employees could voice their concerns without fear of retribution, and he established an anonymous feedback system that allowed for continuous improvement. In time, the company began to see a remarkable turnaround. Productivity increased, customer satisfaction improved, and most importantly, the employees felt valued. The transformation served as a powerful testament to the fact that ethical leadership could indeed turn the tide, proving that even the most established systems can be rebuilt from the ground up when you listen to the people who truly make it work. Ethan's journey from boardroom executive to undercover employee taught him, and eventually everyone in the company, a profound lesson. Success isn't measured solely by financial gains, but by the well-being of the people who drive it. His courageous decision to face the hard truths, even at the risk of his own reputation, sparked a movement for change that resonated throughout the entire organization. This is not just a story about corporate mismanagement or employee exploitation. It's a story about the human spirit and the transformative power of empathy. It reminds us that when leaders are willing to get their hands dirty, to listen, and to act with compassion, even the most daunting challenges can be overcome. So, next time you walk into your own store or workplace, ask yourself, are we truly taking care of our people? Because sometimes, the most important change starts with simply showing up and saying, "I care."